Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here. Don't you just love a good love story?
Love is like that. It's the light that is part of your life. It's unconditional.
There's something there for all of us. There's hope that we can get through this and find some joy in our lives.
He's always been the one.
Self-love is a love story too.
Those little sparks of joy are really important.
Imagine someone making your biggest dream come true.
It's important for people to understand that you're not alone.
Well, we love to be part of a Canadian love story.
The love story never ends.
Well, love is the most important thing.
My love is for my community and promoting and making awareness. And I always said, if it helps one person, then, my mission is complete. If anything positive could come out of this experience that I had being diagnosed with ovarian cancer at 33 years of age, it's that I really feel there's a difference being made right now. And I think the momentum is going to keep going.
Hi, I'm Nancy Regan. Today's love story belongs to Dena Edwards Wadden. Imagine being diagnosed with a dangerous form of cancer at 33. That's exactly what happened to Dena just a few days after her daughter's second birthday. But not only did she do well with her treatment, she turned the tables on ovarian cancer and created Teal To Heal. It's been called the largest free ovarian cancer fundraiser in Canada, and you need to know about it. This is the Canadian Love Map. Dena, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, I'm really excited to have this conversation because I feel like every woman in Canada should hear this, but also everyone who loves a woman should hear this.
Absolutely.
So tell us about yourself before the diagnosis. Let me just ask you about yourself. Forget about, Let's put cancer aside for a sec. Tell me about Dena.
I will. So my name is Dena Edwards Wadden, and I am born and raised in a very proud Cape Bretoner. I'm from Sydney, Nova Scotia. I am a nurse practitioner. I've been a registered nurse since 2011, so for the last 12 years. And I've practiced as a nurse practitioner for the last 7 years. I work in primary care. I am married to a wonderful husband, Mike, and I have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, Micah. And I am someone that has always prided myself in community involvement and being involved in local recreational activities. And even through the work that I do, I'm really big into preventative health and just healthy living and promoting healthy lifestyles.
What drew you to nursing, Dena?
I just love helping people. And I think different people get purpose from different things. And what's really purposeful for me is helping people. It always has been. That's kind of how I gauge, having a good day at work is that I really was able to make a difference in different patients' lives. It was kind of a no-brainer from early on. In high school, I was I think back in the day, they'd call them candy stripers, but they called them us volunteens. So we used to go to the hospital and volunteer and help the nurses. And my namesake, my grandmother, was also Dena Edwards, and she was a registered nurse. So it was kind of neat to not only have her name, but also carry on the profession as well.
Wow, that's a great description of being a helper and the purpose-driven part of your work. And, we on the Canadian Love Map, we celebrate all kinds of love. And this is, in my view, this is love in action. And so we really wanted to talk to you. I guess I'll ask you now to tell the story of how you were living a normal life and it got derailed.
Yeah. So I again was living a normal life. I had had my daughter and I had been off on maternity leave for a while and I started just getting some lower abdominal discomfort. So I went to my family doctor and she ordered an ultrasound and I had what looked like a really normal ovarian cyst. And they had seen it in previous ultrasounds and it hadn't really changed at all. So there was no real concern with it. And the radiologist recommended, like, we'll just repeat this in a year's time. So, anyways, probably 4 or 5 months went by, and it was October 2021. So we were kind of out of like the extreme lockdown for COVID, but there was still like a process to make appointments and to get in for appointments. And I went for my regular PAP exam, and I said, I'm still having some right lower quadrant discomfort. And they said, okay, well, we'll have a look. They mentioned that you're due for an ultrasound maybe like 7 months from now, but we'll just put in the form a little bit earlier and we'll order one for now. So I said, perfect. And it was completely appropriate because it was just a bit of a, like, I wouldn't even call it a pain. It was just a bit of a discomfort, almost like I had a stitch on my right side. And I almost, if I put my arm out and I stretched to the other side, it would kind of relieve the discomfort a bit. So that was July. And then as August went on, it was just progressively getting a bit more uncomfortable. Towards the end of August, I made an appointment for the beginning of September to go back to my family physician. So I went in that day and I said to her, I know I'm waiting for an ultrasound, but something just isn't right. I really am noticing a bit more of a pressure in my lower abdomen, a bit of a discomfort on my right lower side. And I know there's a cyst there. And I was wondering if we could do an ultrasound sooner. And she said, absolutely, we're going to do one today. And I find that's a really important part in my story when I share it because
Yes.
I do think, just as humans, sometimes if we have a concern and we go to our family doctor or our nurse practitioner, and if we're prescribed a pill or given some advice, then that's sometimes it. Well, I already saw them and they thought it was reflux, so we got this medication. But I think it's really important that we take some accountability as well and say, look, the issue's changed now, or it's persisting, or it's not better, because we can't expect them to know if there's a change or something hasn't improved the problem.
So you were really advocating for yourself.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I felt something was not right. So we went and I had an ultrasound done that day, and the ovarian cyst had grown quite significantly to when I had previously had the ultrasound. But still, there was no real concern of cancer at this point.
Oh.
They did an emergency surgery that evening, and the gynecologist removed a large, what we thought was cyst at the time, and my ovary came along with it. And they'll never give you, I'm sure, like a complete, absolutely no answer, but they were very certain that this was not cancer. So a couple weeks went by and I did get a call from the gynecologist, and she said, unfortunately, there was a small concerning area in there and they had sent it off to Halifax for a second opinion. And within a couple of days, I had received confirmation that it was a cancerous tumor that they had removed.
Wow, that was a difficult roller coaster because you probably breathed a big sigh of relief.
Yeah.
And thought you were in the clear, and then you got the news.
It was, but I always had a feeling. And even, friends came and visited me when I was admitted in the hospital because I was in for a couple days. And my husband, the same thing. I remember him different times saying, well, they said that they're not really concerned. And I said, I want to get the pathology. So we call it the pathology when they remove something and send it off. What comes back is the pathology report to tell you the specific kinds of cells. So I do feel like deep down I did know there was something going on. I was diagnosed 4 days after my daughter's second birthday on October 19th, 2021.
Oh, wow.
What's interesting about, and with my background being in healthcare, I knew that ovarian cancer is very rarely found early on. So that's where my roller coaster began, because part of me was trying to be logical. In the pathology report, everything looked contained. They said, like, it didn't, they tested some other areas within my abdomen when I had my initial surgery. They came back clear for cancer. The pathologist, they kind of will write in the note, like, it didn't look that it had gotten into the bloodstream, like the the vessels that are within the tumor. It didn't look like the cancer had invaded there. So I was trying to think logically about that. I had cancer tumor markers and they were at normal levels done after my surgery. But then also, I just knew that ovarian cancer is known in the healthcare field just by people in the gynecological world as being a silent killer. And it's because it's very rarely caught early on. So about 70% of cases are found late stage. And the prognosis when it's found later stage is quite poor. So I continued. I had an MRI done, and that looked all clear. The lymph nodes didn't look overly like enlarged or concerning, and they didn't see any other obvious signs of cancer. But of course, they don't really know until they get in there for further surgery. So I was booked for a second surgery that they call a staging surgery. And that surgery was quite extensive and it involved a full hysterectomy as well. They removed my appendix, something that's called my omentum, and 41 lymph nodes.
Wow. How was your psychology around this time? How are you feeling emotionally?
It was very tough. There was two sides of it. There was the part of me that was trying to be rational. Like I said, my tumor markers were low. It was looking like it was a stage 1 ovarian cancer. So I had to hold on to that. I needed to hold on to that. But I also, had these times, and usually, of course, they happen at like 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up, just thinking, oh my goodness, like if this is stage 3 or stage 4, this is a very poor prognosis. I'm still going to fight it, but it's a poor prognosis. And I just know there was different nights I just stay awake in the rocket chair with my 2-year-old daughter, rocking her and just hoping and praying that it was a stage 1 cancer. So in January, I did have my staging surgery. So important to this story is in Cape Breton, there's no what we call gynecological oncologists. Those are oncologists that specialize with gynecological cancers. So throughout the process, I was traveling back and forth to Halifax, which on its own is a stressor for sure.
A lot of Canadians will relate to this because there are so many Canadians who don't live in major centers.
Absolutely.
So, this is not an unusual story to hear that someone is in a rural area or an area that's distant from the best kind of care. And so you were in a situation where you had to travel to really get the best care.
Absolutely. And I don't want to take away. So the cancer center that we have here in Cape Breton is incredible. And actually the gynecological oncologists in Halifax, they do come down and they do some travel clinics. But for my particular situation, I had to be up in Halifax to require the assessment and care that I needed. And I also went up for a week-long surgery. A surgery that was so extensive I required being admitted for, I believe it was 6 days. So we went up the day before and then I was in hospital for 6 days. So we were up there for a week. I was admitted, and then my husband stayed in the hotel, and then my parents, they brought up my 2-year-old daughter, so she wasn't with COVID rules at the time. Only my husband was allowed to visit me, but at least they brought her up so that she could at least see him when he was before and after he went to the hospital.
Right.
And after my surgery, the doctor told me that she didn't have microscopes for eyes, but things looked good in there when she was doing the surgery. So sure enough, a couple weeks after my surgery, I got a call from her that everything came back clear and it was in fact a stage 1. My particular kind was called a mucinous ovarian cancer. There are different types of ovarian cancers that you can have. So my particular kind was a mucinous ovarian cancer, stage 1.
So you got that call and you could breathe for the first time in a while, probably.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It was unbelievable. And like I had said, she had kind of alluded to the fact that after the surgery, like I know in the cancer world, they don't give false hope. So for her to say that, I thought, okay, she must really have thought it looked good. Whatever she was looking for, I'm not sure, but it looked good while she was in there. And again, it was great to get the phone call that confirmed it was a stage 1 ovarian cancer. So stage 1 ovarian cancer has about a 90% survival rate. whereas stage 3 and stage 4 are less than 30%. I know we're going to get there, but it just kind of ties in to a lot of my mission with what we're going to talk about is early detection really does save lives. Catching cancers earlier on. I mean, it just isn't for ovarian cancer, but particularly with ovarian cancer, because we do know there's such a subtle constellation of symptoms that women can experience. So that's part of my mission in promoting awareness about ovarian cancer.
So let's talk about your transition from, if you don't mind me putting it this way, from victim to hero. You know, you kind of went from being someone to whom this was happening to someone who was taking the reins and saying, okay, I'm going to do something now.
So there's a couple parts to this. So the type of cancer I was diagnosed with is mucinous ovarian cancer. So the good news about mucinous ovarian cancer is it is one that tends to be found a bit earlier on. Like I said, I did have a larger, what we thought was a cyst that was really a tumor, was 20 centimeters large when I had it removed. So mucinous ovarian cancer does tend to get caught a bit earlier than some other types of ovarian cancer because it does tend to grow in larger tumors.
Wow.
So that's the good news about it.
Mhm.
The unfortunate news about it is it requires different treatment options than most other ovarian cancer. So they actually don't have great treatment options for mucinous ovarian cancer. So I didn't receive chemo or radiation. And the reason for it was because there's not great treatment options for the particular type of cancer that I was diagnosed with. So the benefits of me receiving the chemotherapy didn't outweigh the potential risks that would come along with it. But I was told at the time that there's some really good work being done for ovarian cancer down in the States. Like they're on the cusp of some things. There's lots of good conversations happening.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is exciting. Now, ovarian cancer as a whole it's generally a pretty underfunded cancer. If you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer the day someone walked on the moon in 1969 or diagnosed with ovarian cancer today, the survival rate is about the same. We haven't seen great breakthroughs or increased survivability in over 50 years with ovarian cancer. And we know that research and research dollars can lead to breakthrough. So it's something that is really important to me to spread the message of that. So I found this group in the States. They're called the Mucinous Ovarian Cancer Coalition, and they award a $50,000 grant every year for researchers working on treatment options for this particular type of ovarian cancer. So I am from a smaller community, and people knew that I was off work. And of course, small towns, people are talking, people are asking me, why are you off work, what's happening? And I thought to myself, okay, this is an opportunity. I'm just going to set the record straight. So I wasn't a huge Facebook person at the time, but the Mucinous Ovarian Cancer Coalition was a nonprofit, and it was one that you could do like a Facebook fundraiser for. So I set a goal that I was going to type a brief history of what was going on with me, because we hadn't told anybody. 10 to 15 people knew. It was that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wanted to be able to control the information that was out there about me. People were very well meaning, but no one really knew what was going on or why I was off of work. So I made a Facebook post about what was going on, and I made a post that the particular type of cancer I have right now, it seems like it's gone, but I have been told if it comes back, it's considered an incurable cancer because there's not good treatment options for it. So there's this group in the States that do this grant every year for $50,000. So I wanted to contribute $5,000 to it. I said, let's, as a community in Cape Breton, if people have been asking how they can help me or what they can do to help, if you so wish to make a donation. And then at the bottom of the post, there was a link to it.
What you were saying in a really nice way is put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So May 8th, which actually fell on Mother's Day last year, but May 8th every year is World Ovarian Cancer Day. Mm-hmm. So my goal was, it was 10 weeks until Mother's Day that I made this post. And I said, by Mother's Day, I'm going to try to raise $5,000. And, maybe I'll have to have a bake sale, or maybe I'll do a lemonade stand with my daughter. We'll come up with some different ways to do it. My husband and I left our house and we went to Home Depot, and I checked the fundraiser, and it's probably a 12-minute drive. And there had been a $3,000 raised by the time we got to Home Depot. So
Wow. Oh my gosh. That makes me so emotional.
in 6 days, I stopped the fundraiser early because we had raised over $39,000, which translated to about 30,000 Americans. So last year, the grant was awarded for $80,000 instead of $50,000.
We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centers. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. Okay, how emotional did that make you?
Do you want to know what? Emotional, but also like powerful. I thought,
Yes.
okay. So then my focus changed a little bit, and I thought to myself, okay, I live in a 2-income household. I have a medical plan. I have access to a car. I have a drug plan, and I still struggled with the travel back and forth to Halifax. And not even just the travel, but the vulnerability of going to a whole other town, a whole other place. So I have some great community partners, some being our local hospital foundation, and the others being some girls that I've been friends with for a long time that own a local marketing firm called Anchored Ideas. So I said I was going to have a Mother's Day walk. And I want to raise money locally to create a fund through our hospital foundation for those in our community suffering from or diagnosed with ovarian or other gynecological cancers to help offset the cost of them having to travel for their treatments or even for their medication. Like I give the example, I was discharged after being in hospital for a week for my surgery, and I was prescribed a blood thinner. And it was over $400 when my husband went to pick it up. Now we had a drug plan, but I could only imagine, that single mom of 3 kids with no sick time from work that's just been in the hospital for a week, that's just getting home from a 5-hour drive away, and then having to pick up a over $400 prescription. Like there's so many barriers that are in place for individuals diagnosed with a cancer on top of the cancer themselves. So the whole point was, what if we can try to offset some of these stressors so that people can fully focus on the cancer? So that's what we did. So like I said, I'm not in the business world or the marketing world. I was like, we're going to call this a Mother's Day walk. And they were like, no, Dena, we're going to give this a name. We're going to give it a brand. And I didn't understand at the time, but then I quickly understood afterwards. So that's where this Teal. So Teal is the ribbon for ovarian cancer. Teal To Heal came about. And the actual fund through the hospital foundation, we call it the Teal at Home Fund. So Teal To Heal for the first year happened last year on Mother's Day, which was also World Ovarian Cancer Day. So what makes me the most proud of this event is that it was free. So it was a free event that anyone could participate in. And at the time, there were people that meant well, but they were saying, like, Dena, you can't make these free. You're giving people T-shirts, you're giving people. We had a wellness expo there where the cancer center was there, well women's clinics, and our local recreation department, our YMCA, just promoting health and promoting wellness. And like I said, everyone got a free T-shirt and a water bottle that participated. And I said no, because I don't want to put a cost on this, because that is some of the very demographic I'm trying to get through to, that I want to be part of this event. And the money is great to raise, don't get me wrong, but the awareness to raise and let people know of the subtle signs and symptoms trumped that for me. So anyways, Cape Breton, being Cape Breton, is just a community and a place where people really take care of their own. And the sponsorships that came of it. So a local car dealership, McDonald Auto Group, they came on as our title sponsor. So they, right then and there, the event was paid for, and everything else was just money for the fund. And people don't, the security donated their services, the DJ and sound people donated their services, the singer, we had live musical entertainment. There were 3 local food trucks that came and donated all the food. All the 3, they each donated over $2,000 worth of food. So there was free food on site. It was a 5-kilometer run, and then 5-kilometer walk and 2-kilometer walk option.
So if people didn't have to pay to take part in it, how did you raise the money? Because they were all sponsored?
Yeah, so the site that we use is through our hospital foundation. If anyone wants to have a look at it, it's tealtoheal.ca. And so it's a free event to register, but we did ask for a donation if someone was financially able to do so. So people of all ages are able to participate. And then it's a site where Nancy can share her link and, hi, everyone, I'm running my first 5-kilometer run. Would you like to participate or join my team? Or you can pledge me. So it's similar to like Run for the Cure. Back in the day, you could pledge people that were participating. And then it was just unbelievable because you can join as an individual or as a team. The teams, there were so many teams in memory of women who have lost their lives to ovarian or other gynecological cancers. And it was just a really powerful and emotional day. And at the end of the day, we ended up raising over $116,000 for the Teal at Home Fund.
How many people took part?
We had to cap off the numbers at 1,000 2 weeks before the race happened.
And how many did you foresee taking part when you planned it?
Less than 100.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I bought insurance for 100 people, and then I had to change it to 500 people. And then I had to change it to 1,000 people. And then we changed it to 1,500 because there were 1,000 participants, but then with them came like family members and, you know, like we had an extra room for 500 people because some people didn't want to do the walks, but definitely wanted to be a part of the day, which we absolutely welcomed. And there's 3 points to the Teal to Heal kind of movement, I guess. The first, of course, is to raise funds to help our local community. So these funds go places for people that have to travel to Halifax for accommodations, gas cards, food, groceries, even medication help, but even things that we don't necessarily think of. So childcare for women while they're undergoing chemotherapy or going to important appointments,
right?
Psychosocial support. So the psychological toll that cancer takes, like really looking at, and I feel like that's where maybe the nurse part of me comes into play, is we look at the patient as a whole and not just the cancer. So having some support, being able to go speak with a social worker or a psychologist with the grief that they're going through with their diagnosis, respite care for individuals that are later stage ovarian cancer. So we've been able to help a lot of people, and even some people that don't necessarily need the financial help. We do try, and this is something I'm trying to get better at this year, but we do try for every person that has to cross what we call the causeway. So for, if anyone's not familiar, the causeway is what connects Cape Breton Island to the mainland. And that was for me was very emotional, driving over the causeway, heading to Halifax for treatment or surgery. You're in a very vulnerable state, and you're just very, upset and not sure what to expect. And you're going away from home to do it. And like you said, there's so many people in this situation. And we just are trying to provide little cards with anyone. It doesn't matter what their financial situation is, but just a little card with maybe a gas card on the inside that says, you're going off island for treatment that we can't provide right now in Cape Breton. But here's a little something for a Cape Bretoner, raised by Cape Bretoners, to let you know that we're thinking of you and we've got your back.
That's a beautiful concept. Even when you said off island, it makes me think of anyone's experience of cancer is like off island. This is not your norm. This is not, the life that you anticipated. It is off island.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And that's a great way. I never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right.
And it seems to me that as much as you're talking about raising money, which is practical for women who are going through this, as much as anything, it's also, I'm sure, that they feel the support, the safety net of that money that you raised.
Absolutely. And even just the awareness. So, and like I said before, awareness to me, so there's vague symptoms that come along with ovarian cancer, and I'll never turn down the opportunity to talk about a couple of them. So lower abdominal bloating or abdominal pressure. So one thing that I can remember is I would lean up against the sink, like just washing the dishes, and I felt like it was just a different feeling. And I remember just, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but thinking back and saying like, oh gee, like that doesn't feel that doesn't feel just like my normal belly fat kind of squishing. Like that feels a little bit different. When there was a tumor in there that I didn't even realize. And so like a lower abdominal pressure or bloating, lower back pain is another one. So of course, how many of us have lower back pain?
Mhm.
Urinary changes. So the logic in that is like maybe there's something pushing on your bladder, causing like increased urinary frequency. Feeling full more easily is another one. So individuals saying like they have this feeling of fullness all the time. So those are some of the main signs and symptoms of ovarian cancer. So you can see they're really vague. And like I didn't have any of the other ones except for just the abdominal pain and pressure. So not everyone's going to have all of them. And my message to women and anyone born with ovaries, because no matter how we identify, if you're born with ovaries, you are at risk for ovarian cancer. And anyone with any of these signs and symptoms to get checked out. And like I said before, not every appointment necessarily needs to have like a pelvic ultrasound done. But if the symptoms are persistent, if they're not going away, despite you've already been there and you had an X-ray on your back, or you were prescribed something for acid reflux, or you were treated for a UTI and the symptoms aren't going away, then be persistent and go back and advocate for yourself. Because whoever saw you originally isn't going to know that things didn't improve or didn't get better with the original intervention that they recommended. So be persistent and just be aware that any of those symptoms, and if they're not going away, they warrant further investigations.
Yeah, it's interesting because your nursing background helped you. And so I think did your intuition. The combination thereof really helped you advocate for yourself. But I think one of the great challenges with ovarian cancer, and the fact that it's often not found till later, is that women are caregivers and caretakers. We tend to be taking care of everyone else, and we leave ourselves to last. So it seems to me that a big part of what you're saying, the subtext of what you're saying is, advocate for yourself and don't be afraid to make yourself a priority.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've gotten better with other type of cancers in doing that. So we know about mammograms. We know about PAPs. Ovarian cancer does not have a good early detection screening tool. A lot of women think that PAP tests check for ovarian cancer. That I was asked that so many times. When was did you have a PAP done? Yeah, actually I had a PAP done in June of that year that was normal, but that checks for cervical cancer.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So PAPs check for cervical cancer. Now, it's always a great opportunity while at one of these appointments, if you're having some of those symptoms, to mention it to the practitioner and they can lay hands on your belly. Had someone really kind of had a good feeling in my belly, chances are they may have been able to feel, a 20 centimeter tumor in there. So there's not a great early detection screening tool. And that brings me to my whole research dollars point of the awareness with ovarian cancer as well. But yeah, just being persistent with the signs and symptoms and knowing what the signs and symptoms are.
The Lady Ball is a big fundraiser across the country in different places for Ovarian Cancer Canada. And I have been involved with the organization for a long time because I'm a believer, as you say, in really boosting awareness. That's what we need to do. So when we heard your story, we were excited to share it.
Thank you. And thank you. And I know this kind of has the love theme to it. And my love is for my community and promoting and making awareness. And I always said, if it helps one person, then, my mission is complete. And last September, CBC News asked me to come on the radio. It was the first day of Ovarian Cancer Month. So I had previously been on discussing the Teal To Heal event. So they invited me on with they had told me it was to talk about ovarian cancer. So they surprised me while I was on air with a lady who had heard my story and how I described the discomfort. And she went to the emergency department and they found an ovarian mass.
Whew.
Now, at that point, she had just had the surgery the week before, but she was just very, very thankful because she wasn't aware, again, of the saying, like, when we know better, we do better. So if I could shout it from the rooftops, just the signs and symptoms, and to be persistent if you feel something's off, and if initial interventions that you tried with your doctor or nurse practitioner aren't working, go back. Have more conversations.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Dena, how has this whole experience made your life richer?
It has. It's purposeful. It's a lot of work. It's something that we usually start in January planning. So we're doing our second Teal To Heal this coming Mother's Day on May 14th. There is a virtual option. If anyone wants to partake, they can register online at the tealtoheal.ca site, and we will mail you a shirt and you can participate virtually. But there's a lot of buzz in Cape Breton right now. There's buzz about women's health, and it's like at the forefront of conversations. And if anything positive could come out of this experience that I had being diagnosed with ovarian cancer at 33 years of age, it's that I really feel there's a difference being made right now. And I think the momentum is going to keep going. My next hope is that the buzz that we create around ovarian cancer is really going to carry enough momentum to increase research dollars towards ovarian cancer research in Canada.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I'm cheering you on. I've got my pom-poms out. Go, Dena, go.
Thank you.
And I'm curious about what sort of a role will gratitude play in your celebration of Mother's Day this year?
I'm super thankful. It always sounds a bit funny to say I was one of the lucky ones with ovarian cancer, but with it being stage 1, so ovarian cancer, they'll use the term no evidence of disease. So it's not really ovarian cancer survivor. It's every 3 months you go for appointments, and they'll say there's no further evidence of disease. So every 3 months that I get my tumor markers done, and I have my follow-up in Halifax. And when I hear those words, super grateful that I was one of the lucky ones. And hopefully by people being made aware of this and recognizing some symptoms early on, other individuals can be caught early stage as well. And I'm one of those people that celebrate every birthday, celebrate every milestone, make the most of every opportunity, because we never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Well, I'm really grateful that you're here on the podcast, and I'm really grateful that you're here, period.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the love that you're putting out into the world.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for helping me spread awareness on this.
My pleasure, truly. Thanks, Dena.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Canadian Love Map. If you love us, please subscribe and share. And if you want to help us spread the love even more, rate and review our podcast. It makes such a difference. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter.